We thought quick review for this book or course, How We Learn by the Great Courses. I'll give this book 3 stars out of 5. Um, Again, I refer to this as a book, even though it's a course. I felt like some of the information was not well delivered or well um, analyzed. Not too much new information that I got out of this book. And I felt like the professor was also a little all over the place, not very organized. So it's kind of like the lectures themselves going all over the place, and there is no good structure overall. So it's 3 stars. I would not necessarily recommend, but definitely learned some things. You always learn some things. Let's see the notes. In classical conditioning, it's really hard to disassociate the two or introduce a different association instead. We have classical conditioning when two things, two stimulus, are binding together in a way. The thing is that it's hard to disassociate them and take them apart. So let's say the classical conditioning, the classical conditioning example is Pavlov's dog. So when there is a bell, there is food. So it's really hard to disassociate the bell from the food. Inconsistent rewards drive the best learning outcome. That's what they do with slot machines. So when there is inconsistent rewards, when there is no pattern when giving rewards, that's when the best learning outcome can be achieved. That's what they do with slot machines where there is inconsistent. You don't know when, so you basically get addicted, but you're still doing it. People use structures and things they know to organize things for better memorization. So they use mental models in a way, they use their own models to better organize and memorize things. Animals mostly use language for imperatives, things they must do or have. So it's always contested whether animal language is actual language or it's a signal, just signals. But besides that, the language that animals are using is only for imperatives. They don't talk about the weather. Second language acquisition is easier when immersed in the culture and the language. It's much easier when immersed and in the culture and both in the language because you get to practice. Imagining how we do tasks is helpful for practicing. So just imagining how we would go, there's a lot of athletes that are doing it or used to do it, and it's considered practice. It's not exactly the same thing, but it helps a lot. Our cognitive maps are approximate and not very accurate. We think they're more accurate than they are, but they're not very accurate. Some of what makes a story good is how it felt from the first person perspective. That's what we like when we hear stories. How does it feel? How does it felt from the first person, from the POV standpoint? What did you felt? So that's the important part when listening to a story or when telling a story. That's what you should include. So that's the first part here. Go to the next part. Repetitions signal to the brain that information is important and should not be forgotten. That's what there is more repetitions. The brain understand that, okay, this information is important, so let's not forget it. During REM sleep, the brain can rehearse motor actions since muscles are deactivated. That's what the brain does sometimes. Rehearse motor actions. Those are hard to do when not in REM sleep because the muscles are only deactivated during REM sleep. We don't notice or remember what we are not paying attention to. Literally, it's out of sight, out of mind. Dogs have bigger frontal cortexes than cats. Therefore, they have more inhibition control than cats do. bilinguals seem to have better executive functions and are less prone to dementia. Just interesting fact. They tend to have better executive functions, those who are bilinguals, and are less prone to dementia. Just interesting. Elaborative coding enhances memory recollection. Elaborative, when you make more, you understand it more, you make it more elaborative, it helps memory recollection. Fear is associated with flight, anger is associated with fight, and sadness is associated with seeking support. So there's the fight or flight response, and there's also some people add freeze to it, but those three things, those emotions, what's the objective of those emotions? What's it trying to achieve? So fear is trying to achieve flight. Get the fuck out of there. Anger is associated with fight. You get adrenaline, you get pumped up, and you get ready to fight. Sadness, on the other end, is associated with seeking support. You get sad, and that's where you seek support. So all those emotions are basically trying to help us cope. The last one, making mistakes is a part of learning as it increases scope of possibilities. So the more we kind of like the way I look at it, it's not the way she explained this, but the way you look at it is like you're mapping things. When you have more possibilities, then you learn. It's kind of like experiences. You have so much experiments that you ran that you basically learned how to do it. So that is for the notes. And again, there is some interesting parts, but overall, I would not recommend. It's kind of long. It's long, and a lot of the information is either not very important, not very well delivered, or not interesting. But so there's some good information there. That's it for the notes. Thank you.